My name's Alexandria, and I have struggled with fear and anxiety since about the first grade, and I just really let it take control of my life. And I transferred into UGA my sophomore year, and I had always struggled with fear and anxiety, but it never been as bad as when I got here my first semester. I lost 10 pounds within a month because I just couldn't eat because I would be so anxious and it would make me nauseous, and I just wasn't able to eat anything. And then I would just have anxiety attacks, and I'd never experienced those before. And I was just thinking, God, you called me to UGA. I'm being obedient, and this is the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I just kept thinking, why this and why now? But I just was surrounded with people that I ended up meeting here in Athens who just were like, no, you can keep going. It's okay. God's got this. He's using your pain for a purpose, and you might not see it now, but you'll see it in the future. And I was like, that's really hard to understand and really hard to grasp, but they're right. And so I was going through the year, just trying to make it every day and just, make it to the end of the day even. And then I went to a missions fair at Wesley after one of the services, and I saw the Tanzania sign. I was like, no, not Africa. No way. I can hardly live 3 hours away from home. Walked back by it, and Adam handed me a flyer, and I was like, okay, we'll see what this is about. So I talked to him for a minute, and I was just felt very peaceful even about going to Africa. So I went home that night, signed up for the trip, and I remember thinking, I can't live 3 hours away from home, but I'm okay with going halfway across the world. All right, God. Okay, so went through the rest of the year up for preparation for this trip, and definitely still struggled with fear and anxiety, and I let it take control of my life, and it, up until this point, had taken control of my life my entire life. So we went to Africa, went with the most amazing team of people ever. God couldn't have put a better group together. They're all wonderful. We get there, and I remember, I think it was maybe the third night we were there, and Mary Kate pulled me aside during group time, and because we were each splitting up into pairs. I remember her telling me, because I'd shared earlier that anxiety and fear was something that I really have struggled with, and that I just, I was I don't see the end of the tunnel for this. I don't see this ever being something I can let go of, and I was it's really hard to trust God with this, and just being able to give it all to Him, and I wasn't doing that. And she told me, she said, you give, when you claim fear and anxiety, you give it a place in your life. And I just remember looking at her, and I was like, Mary Kate, I just really don't see, the end for this. I know there's an end, and I know that God has a purpose behind it, but it's a little hard. And she told me something that I'll take with me forever. Is I'm a daughter of the King, and so I'm fearfully, wonderfully made, so I'm already filled with the Holy Spirit, so there's no room for fear and anxiety in my life. And I believed it for the first time ever. It changed my entire life. I was I actually believe this. And I believe that, I'm a daughter of the King, and so fear and anxiety doesn't have a place in my life. And it kept going, and throughout the trip, I just felt this sense of freedom that I had never felt before, because I had finally given everything to God. I wasn't holding anything for myself. I was, not holding anything back with trusting Him. And it was just okay, it's all for you. It's all for you. You've got it all. You can have fear. You can have anxiety. You can have anything. Because, I know now, and I fully believe that, you were with me in the past, you're with me now, and you're going to be with me in the future. And that's just so peaceful to know that. And it took me, it took me, 20 years of my life to believe this. But now that I do, it's not something I'll ever go back on. I'll run to something that scares me, and then run away from the comfort of life. Because when you run away into the very things, that terrify you, that's when, God's power breaks through you and in you. And that's when everything changes.